I presented the Unity Budget to this chamber on 18 February. 37 days later, on 26 March, I presented the Resilience Budget. And 11 days later, yesterday, I presented our Solidarity Budget. 3 budgets within just 48 days. We are dedicating close to $60 billion, amounting to 12% of our GDP, to deal decisively with the situation at hand. The 3 budgets make up our largest budget in any one financial year, in dollar amount and as a percentage of GDP. This is the largest spending in any financial year in our nation's history. We also incurred the largest deficit ever, $44.3 billion, or 8.9% of our GDP. As Ms. Ting Pei Ling observed, this deficit alone is half of our total spending in the preceding financial year. We had to seek the President's approval to draw on our past reserves, not once, but twice. In total, the President has given her in-principle support for the government to draw up to $21 billion from our past reserves for the Resilience Budget and the Solidarity Budget. Once again, I thank the President for her deep understanding of the nature of this crisis and for her support. I also thank the Chairman and members of the Council of Presidential Advisors. As Finance Minister, I'm extremely grateful that we have been able to tap on the deep financial reserves, our current and past reserves, which have been so carefully built up, invested, and managed. This has allowed us to respond to the crisis without having to borrow and without burdening our future generations with repayment obligations. But just exactly how deep are our reserves? Mr. Pritam Singh have asked this question time and again in this House. Members would know that our reserves comprise assets invested by MAS, GIC, and Temasek. MAS and Temasek publish the size of the funds they invest. It is the size of the funds invested by GIC that is not published. We do not disclose the total size of our reserves for the sake of national security and strategic interests. As a small country without any natural resources and highly dependent on imports, our reserves are vital to our overall economic and financial stability and our well-being. They provide a key defense for Singapore in times of crisis. I've shared with members that during the 2008 global financial crisis, the late President S.R. Nathan approved the provision of $150 billion from our past reserves to guarantee bank deposits in Singapore. This move calmed our depositors, and we did not have a single bank run during that very difficult period. All our depositors' money was safe. In 2009, President Nathan approved a draw of $4.9 billion from the past reserves to fund the resilience package then, to help us overcome the crisis. Having our reserves therefore played a key role in helping us to emerge stronger from that crisis. In fact, our economy rebounded quickly. Our reserves serve as a strategic defense. It gives us the wherewithal to resolutely defend the Singapore dollar against speculative attacks. This contributes to a stable Singapore dollar, which in turn bolsters the confidence of investors and citizens. Our reserves are thus no different from SAF's arsenal. No country's armed forces will ever tell you exactly how much ammunition and weaponry they really have. To do so is to betray valuable intelligence to potential adversaries. This is obviously not a wise defense strategy, and likewise should not be adopted for our financial reserves. What members should focus on are the policies and programs, especially those which may require the use of reserves. Debate the merits of these programs, including the expenditure required for them. But let's be clear, it is neither in the interest of Singapore or Singaporeans to repeatedly ask about the size of our reserves. We are in the middle of a storm, and I'm very disappointed that Mr. Pritam Singh has used this occasion to raise this question again. Mr. Pritam Singh also asked How will we ensure sustainable finances in the next term of government? He suggested that we review our usage of past reserves in view of the longer-term impact of COVID-19. Many have urged us, year after year, to spend more of our reserves to fund our growing expenditure, suggesting that we do not need to save so much or to ever raise taxes. But like Mr. Liang Eng Hwa said, we kept the discipline and stuck to our principle of using the returns from our reserves in a prudent manner. We do not view the reserves as a piggy bank to be broken at will to provide the government with a convenient source of additional revenue. We avoided running deficits in good years and consistently saved. If we had succumbed to the political pressure to spend more of our reserves in good years, we would not have had the war chest to deal with critical moments such as now, and to do even more, if necessary, even in the next term of government. But the aftermath of the COVID-19 outbreak will be with us for a long time, and we will need to deal with it on a sustainable basis. If the crisis deepens, our economy and revenues will shrink, and we may have to make use of our past reserves again for recovery. While we must make plans, and we are, at this hour, let us all focus our minds fully on making the best use of this very unprecedented budget to build social and economic resilience. And if there is a need, we have the institution of the government and the elected president to decide on how best to use our resources to manage a crisis. So indeed, this crisis has reaffirmed the value of our key institutions and the key tenets of our prudent fiscal policy: to spend prudently, invest wisely, and plan consistently for the long term. Beyond our financial reserves, I'm grateful that we have been able to tap on the deep reserves of strength and resourcefulness of our people. Without the strength, resourcefulness, trust of our people, all the right measures won't be worth the dollar tag on them. But with this, our combined strength is worth so much more. Our healthcare workers, home team officers, cleaners, and many other unsung heroes have carried out their duties with commitment and courage. They have had a very tough time. They have to stay alert and careful while working long hours and over weekends. It is very moving that our people recognize this and pour out strong support for them. Many Singaporeans have made videos and written letters of appreciation to spur our frontline workers. Students and staff from UT Primary School who made personalized cards and a video to show support and appreciation for the frontline staff of various hospitals and our police officers. And there are many others like them. Just last week, applause rang out across our heartlands at 8 p.m. on 30th March as Singaporeans came together to give those on the front lines a round of applause as part of our Clap for Singapore, Clap for SG United campaign. And this applause was also for everyone who has been helping to keep Singapore safe during this tough time. Indeed, our national stock of resilience is made up of all our individual stocks of resilience. Ultimately, the long-drawn fight against the virus will be won by us standing together as one united people. Cases are creeping up, and as Mr. Vikram Nair put it, we must each do our part. This is absolutely serious, a matter of life and death. This has been an extremely hectic period for me, Minister Lawrence Wong and Minister Indrani Raja, and all my cabinet colleagues. I'm grateful to my staff in MOF, many of them young or with young families. They have been working tirelessly for almost 10 weeks now, from Ponga to Valentine's Day to the Chinese New Year and over many weekends. It is the first time that MOF officers have had to prepare 3 budgets within 48 days. It is not only hectic, it has been emotional. We know what is at stake: our lives, our livelihoods, our loved ones, our home and nation. I know people like to call us at MOF bean counters because we are always counting the costs and benefits of things. We count because you count. We weigh up our reserves of strength, measure out the right actions to help our people and businesses, pace ourselves, to go the distance and save for the future. We count to protect our people and our home. So I thank my staff and my colleagues for running this race together with me. I could not have asked for a better team, and I thank their families for their understanding. You should be very proud of your loved ones who are giving their everything in the public service. I also thank members of this House who bring the honesty and resilience not only into this chamber, but also into our fight on all fronts against COVID-19. I'm especially heartened that fellow Singaporeans and MPs show strong values and commitments to our future. Let me just share a few examples. After I announced the resilience budget, Ms. Tan wrote to me, saying that she's touched that we are tapping into the reserves built up by earlier generations. She then went on to urge that we must work to put back what we are going to use so that future generations have emergency funds for the next crisis. Several others also did so. Members such as Mr. Chia Shi Lu and Ms. Ting Pei Ling have also come forward to urge us not to spend in an unbridled fashion from the reserves, even in today's situation. Indeed, as we draw down on our reserves to tackle the generational crisis of unprecedented scale, we must uphold our responsibility to steward our reserves properly in our time for the benefits of our future generations. Yesterday, Minister Khaw Boon Wan shared the story of his primary 2 granddaughter, who had been urging his wife and their helper to put on masks and to observe safe distancing. And less than 24 hours ago, when I was here in this chamber delivering the solidarity budget, a young mother was at home watching it live together with her daughter. The mother later wrote to me saying that afterwards, her daughter asked her, "Will Singapore become bankrupt?" I was surprised and glad that her daughter and Minister Khaw's granddaughter could understand such values at such a young age. As adults, let us uphold our values and not let our children and future generations down. It is precisely for them that my team and I are determined to exercise fiscal discipline and prudence. The mother who wrote to me asked for an answer for her daughter. Will Singapore become bankrupt? No, we will never let Singapore become bankrupt.